Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of HUMANIMAL Heroes. My name is Daniel and I am from the land down under. It's great to be here and look forward to speaking with Altan a bit further.
Well, thank you very much for the lovely introduction. Really nice. It's always a delight talking to you, man. And thank you for the time. I mean, it's now 8 p.m. in Sydney.
It is. We're pretty much ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to time zones. So it's.
So I'm talking to the future.
You are exactly, and I think if you're speaking to New Zealand, it's even a bit further in the future. So we're shortly behind.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for the lovely introduction, Daniel. It's been a while. I think we talked and met last time. It was 2019.
That's
you
right.
You were in Cologne, Germany.
In Cologne.
You did a short stopover with your delightful and lovely girlfriend Trisha.
That's it.
And yeah, so how are you doing, guys?
Yeah, really good. It's pretty much the middle of winter here in Australia, so we don't get much of a winter in Australia compared to Europe, but for example, today was a warm 20 degrees, maybe with a low of 9 overnight.
Yeah, that's not a winter.
And majority of days are sun-filled and clear skies, so it's been pretty good.
Yeah, but Sydney can be windy and cold. I was in Sydney at the south part of Sydney at the cliff somewhere. I can remember it was cold.
It can be. I guess Australia's got a pretty big east coast, and right up in the North Queensland, it tends to be a bit more tropical weather, and doesn't tend to have much for winter. But as soon as you go further south, Sydney, and then south again to Melbourne, and even further south to the island off the Melbourne coastline, Tasmania, it can get extremely cold, and they've recently had quite a bit of snow in the Alpine region. So I think a lot of people don't realize there is a snow season in Australia, and even though there's a few mountaintops that do receive a bit of cover, but this year particularly have had a good coverage of snow.
Yeah, I think after spring we had a little bit cold weather too here, like Cologne. Actually, I've seen some snow particles in the air. I think in the mid of April, it was really interesting to see some snow particles.
Wow.
Yeah, weather is crazy. I don't know, maybe global warming or not.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's crazy times.
It is.
Friend, mate, brother, I really appreciate that you're doing this because I was reading your CV on LinkedIn the other day. I was really impressed, and I was wondering, how the hell can you take a free time like this and make a podcast with me?
No, not a problem at all. It's you got to have a bit of fun as well in between the work. So
yes, definitely.
Great to be part of the show.
Yeah. Before we jump into those projects and your career experience, would you please introduce yourself? Like, who's Daniel? What does he do for a living? And maybe tell them how did we end up being friends from two continents?
Yeah, sure. My name is Daniel. I am originally from southeast Queensland, in a small coastal town, Coolangatta, which is the southernmost town in Queensland. And to put it into perspective, we're around 200, 300 metres away from the border of New South Wales. So within Australia, you do have a number of states and territories. And Queensland, Coolangatta, it's the last town. So I grew up in Coolangatta, and I completed my studies at the University of Queensland in Brisbane, civil engineering. So I did a 4-year single major, and I think what drew me into engineering was putting things together, understanding how projects come together, all the activities that go into planning, and eventually the finished product. So I think I like that scope understanding right from the
Yeah,
conceptual stage through to the day the doors open, or the day the highway
yeah,
opens to traffic, or the day you board a metro vehicle in an underground tunnel. I
yeah,
particularly like all that activity and the complexities around the delivery of those projects.
yeah.
Um,
Definitely lots of challenges and days of, oh my goodness, how do I end this project and all that
Definitely.
stuff.
Oh,
But at the end, if you see the results, like outside, as you said, like highways, um, buildings, all that, what makes a city work, and to see that at the end, it is really impressing and yeah, overwhelming.
that's it. And I think as they say, it's quite cliche, but the term city shaping, it really does shape a city.
Yeah.
I think in more recently, there's a new underground line called the Elizabeth Line opening up in the UK, and although I think it's heavily over budget, and over time, it's been it set a whole new standard in terms of underground transport and moving people
Yeah.
to and from different parts of a city. So
Mm.
it's exciting,
Yeah.
the future of cities and how people are going to be moving around, and what form of technology we're going to be using.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um, did do you have any family members or friends that were or still are civil engineers? Because you said like you grew up in Kulangada. You have you seen people working in this field of engineering, or is it like something you develop over the years?
um, I think I definitely got a few school friends who also followed the pathway of becoming a civil engineer. Um, but the students in my cohort at the time, the vast majority are still in the engineering field, be it in design,
Mm.
delivery, commissioning, or maintenance, all different parts of engineering. But generally speaking,
Yeah.
they have enjoyed the career in civil engineering just like I have. It is rewarding, and as you alluded to, Alten, it can be pretty frustrating as well when things don't
Oh
necessarily
yes.
go to plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I I was in the field for about 7 years, in construction delivery roles, both in Australia and abroad, and um, I decided to take up a master's in engineering, and that's where I met yourself, Alten, doing a part time study at Queensland University of Technology. So
Ah, okay. That's
um,
what because after reading your CV, University of Queensland is the other university, right? There are two
that's right.
universities in Brisbane.
In Brisbane, there's three. So
Three. Okay.
University of Queensland, Queensland University of Technology, and Griffith University. They're the main
Ah, Griffith. Yeah,
three
yeah, yeah.
three unis in Brisbane.
University. Yeah. Oh, cool.
I think when you compare Brisbane to say Sydney or Melbourne, Sydney is a bigger city. It's
Hmm.
double the population. I think it's around 4.8. I think in Sydney, 4.8 million, whereas
Wow.
Brisbane,
Okay.
yeah, it's around 2.3, 2.4 at the moment. But you do get there's a number of more universities in Sydney and Melbourne,
Hmm.
um, when you compare it to Brisbane.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And we were in the same course, EMB, EMB 100. I don't know. I
That's
forgot
it.
the.
I can't quite remember some of the course code
I,
names, but
I know it was total quality management,
that's
and
right. Right.
yeah, it was really fun working with you guys. And honestly, I got to admit that all those assignments during my study abroad program at the QT had been finalized successfully, and it was fun working on an international scale, you know. And I didn't have that kind of experience back in my home university. I
Yeah.
mean, in Aachen, RWTH Aachen University, there are lots of international students, yes, but we were kind of in our groups, you know. And I like bachelor thesis, master thesis, all those assignments were actually in German, but the time in QT was something different.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's the best part of being a master's course is the people you meet, Um, learning's one facet of doing a master's program, but particularly being an international student like yourself coming over, you have the opportunity to travel and make new friends and see different parts of Australia.
Yeah.
I think Australia geographically, we're a long way away from the rest of the world.
Yes.
I
It,
even
it took it
to
took like
fly up to
24 hours, I think, in the whole flight hours. Crazy.
it sure is, and I think even for Australians going up to Europe, you really you have to set aside a day of travel either end of the trip.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
a lot of people do fly through UAE, either Abu Dhabi,
Mm,
Dubai, or via Singapore or via Hong
yeah.
Kong, and then they have I guess, a transit of a couple of hours, and then they tend to board another flight to another destination. So
Yeah.
certainly can be a big journey down under
Yeah,
some
it was my first intercontinental flight,
down.
and I
Yeah,
did a stopover in Singapore like for 2 or 3 weeks, not weeks, 2 or 3 days, and yeah, it was really interesting to make all these experiences, And yeah, just said um, the study abroad program gives people the opportunity to work on an international level. What would you recommend people, especially younger people from smaller suburban village like regions without bigger universities and therefore like without the chance to get into international communities or even companies? What would you say? What is the best way to get the first international experiences?
I think being open to opportunities. I think first and foremost, I think making a deliberate approach to getting involved in bigger cosmopolitan cities. So if you are
Hmm.
in a smaller town, maybe you could consider doing an internship or some work experience, or just spend a short period of time in a bigger city,
Yeah.
and you'll be around different people. There'll be companies that may not necessarily operate in the smaller towns.
Mm.
Will have a headquarters, or there will be an opportunity to see how they operate. So I think
Mm.
if you do want to get involved overseas, as you did, Alton, I think a study abroad program is a fantastic way, because you're not necessarily working, but you are working to learn more.
Yeah.
But in saying that, you can take up some part time jobs whilst you are studying abroad. So I certainly see it as a way to meet new people at a time in your life
Mm.
where you don't have major responsibilities, but you're growing as an individual. You're learning more, and it's an exciting part.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I wouldn't do that study abroad program, we wouldn't be able to do this podcast right now.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
So yeah, you're right. I mean, to be open and to be, I think, a little bit brave. Some people are not that, they don't really try. Maybe because yeah, I don't know this, and because I don't know the things or anything else, I don't do it. So keep the same track in life,
Yeah,
and that's actually sad. I mean, you have to be sometimes look like left and right. Okay, you know.
that's right. Bit bolder, bit braver. I think certainly.
Yeah.
That's very true.
You were open. You are a really open guy. I mean, I don't know where does it come from. Is it because you're Australian, or it's the weather? Maybe I think you are originally like from South Africa. Your parents or your
Parents,
grandparents, parents,
parents.
parents moved
Yeah,
to Australia, right?
that's right. Yeah. So
Wow,
I'm
cool.
I'm first generation Australian. So both my parents are from South Africa.
Yeah.
So they did come to Australia before all us four kids were born. So like many Australians, I think I heard the statistic, maybe over 50% of Australians have one or both parents from another country. So
Wow.
Australia is a pretty a diverse country in terms of backgrounds, but also it's a relatively new country in terms of people moving to Australia,
Mm.
but it's certainly steeped in history of the original Aboriginals. So they go back many thousands of
Yeah.
years. So Australia is certainly a land of lots of history,
Yeah,
both short
definitely.
term and long term.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did experience lots of people from different cultures, regions, different languages, and it was really impressive to see how people actually get along in Australia. I think way better than in other places on Earth.
Countries. Yeah, I think so. So
So, I mean, I was just like 5 months there during the study abroad program. I mean, you are living there. I think and I assume that life is sometimes harder there too. I mean, it's not always like fun,
yeah,
but still people get along way better than some other regions on Earth.
yeah, I think so. I think it's a pretty stable country economically. I think it's certainly far away from the world that you can't access Australia as easily as a. I mean, we're the
Yeah,
largest island continent,
yeah,
so we have thousands of kilometers of water between us and
yeah,
the continent. Um, so it's certainly a pretty diverse country to be in. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Cool. And do you still have like relatives, family members in South Africa? Yeah.
quite yeah. The majority of relatives are still based in South Africa. We have a few cousins either
Okay.
side of mum and dad's side of the family, but the majority of family are still in South Africa.
Okay.
Some
Where
of them,
exactly?
quite a few different towns: so Johannesburg, Cape Town, Port
Yeah.
Elizabeth,
Okay.
um, Durban, and they're the main sort of cities
Mm.
in South Africa that they're based in. So I I visited South Africa in 2015, I think. That's was
Yeah.
yeah. So I was over there for about 5 weeks, visiting relatives and family,
Mm.
and seeing some of the yeah reconnecting with some cousins I
Yeah.
haven't met and seeing places that I hadn't been to for many years.
Yeah.
We did visit as a family when I was very young, but it was
Mm.
great to go back and see things in a different perspective at a different age. You
Yeah.
get to appreciate things a bit more and have better conversations with some of your relatives. So
Yeah. I mean,
certainly,
today is somehow easier because of like mobile phones, smartphones. You can talk with like everywhere. You can be everywhere and anywhere. You can talk like if you have like online like, internet access, it's easy to connect with people today. I think
definitely.
20, 30 years ago, it was way harder.
It was tough. I think even 30 years ago there wasn't. It was just your landline. So it was a matter of making sure that they are at home, the person you're going to call. You've got credit. I think it was incredibly expensive to make a call at that time, and now we're on a call together, and it's virtually free. All you need is an internet connection now.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I agree. We're a lot more connected now. That's for sure.
Yeah. It makes life easier, sometimes maybe tougher if you're like online for 24/7. If you have like no connection, people get like oh my god, where is he? Like chill man. He's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
off the internet like 1 hour.
That's
Nothing happened. It's fine.
yeah. I think sometimes it's good after being in front of the computer. I've heard of people having a bit of a detox where you get into a habit where you leave your phone at home
Yeah.
for the morning. So if you're going out for half the day, sometimes leaving your phone at home, or when you're going to do a certain sport, leaving your phone at home. I know it's not feasible in all situations, but to disconnect from the virtual world is sometimes a refreshing thing at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And especially like a place like Australia with lots of beautiful landscapes, and it would be sad if you're just sitting in front of the computer hours and hours. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, cool. Um, I'd like to jump right into your professional life if it's okay, because
Yeah, sure.
as I said, I was reading your CV the other day and it was really impressive. You are an engineer and you do like lots of business stuff too, like the paperwork of the projects, and you are advisor, like an advisor for the Brisbane City Council.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of my career, well, the front end of my career to date, in delivery and operation roles. So very much once a contract's awarded, site based. So
Mm.
on the field in sometimes remote locations and sometimes central city locations. But for the vast majority, I was in remote
Mm.
locations in far north Queensland, Newcastle. I had the opportunity to spend some time in Saudi Arabia as an engineer, and that was for around 7 years. And then I obviously did some study midway through, and then I um, was fortunate enough to join an advisory firm, which um, they spend a lot of time in the front end prior to contract award. So in the
Mhm.
transaction space, developing contracts, de-risking them, essentially setting up projects for
Mhm.
success.
So you
And
are like in between client and the project, right? You make sure that the clients give the money
yeah,
and the project is done.
yeah,
Like
that's it.
for
Yeah,
people don't know the field of what you're doing. Yeah.
yeah. So we tend to spend a lot of time on the client side, but
Hmm.
representing the client
Hmm.
in when projects are being delivered or prior to contract award and that moment where the shovel hits the ground and
Yeah.
they start digging some dirt. So it's certainly been pretty rewarding, and there's some as Australia's seen a huge, overwhelming number of infrastructure projects and investments from different states, from Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, and now more recently with Queensland being announced, the 2032 host city, Brisbane, for
Hmm.
the Summer Olympic Games. So
Okay.
hopefully that will spur on some additional funding and some projects for Southeast Queensland. So certainly looking forward to being part of that and
Yeah.
being part of the progress that Southeast Queensland will make on the lead up to those games.
Go Australia.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think Melbourne's held the Olympic Games, Sydney has, and now
Yeah.
now it's Brisbane's turn. So
Yeah.
should be good.
As you said, you been responsible for different kind of projects, mostly in not like national scale, but you were like involved in an international project as well in Saudi Arabia. That was really interesting to read. It was like one contract package of your duty, right? CTW 300. Did a little bit research
Oh, you
because
did
it's
great.
yeah,
Hey?
yeah. I'm looking at this podcast project as an engineering podcast, as an engineering project, you know. So the way you prepare is like depends on otherwise the output, the outcome of any project. It can be podcast, it can be bridges, it can be railways. The preparation is like everything. If you are prepared, the outcome is mostly always very good and excellent. So that's why I did the research to have a little conversation between two engineers from two continents.
No,
Yeah.
definitely.
I calculated the costs of the project. It was like 3.7 billion Australian dollars worth over the years. I mean, that's huge.
It is. It is a significant amount of investment made by those clients. Definitely, it's has been.
It's crazy. I mean, the one was the international one in Saudi Arabia, And the other one was Australia Pacific, the liquefied natural gas, the gas processing facilities in Queensland. So both worth like 1.12 billion Australian dollars. So I mean, one is the international project, one is a national. Are there any differences between those? Except like the money is like the same, but I think there are challenges if you are doing those kind of big projects.
Yeah, definitely. And I think $1 billion now is the new norm for Australia, actually, in terms of major infrastructure projects. But operating in different parts of the world certainly has different challenges and different sets of responsibilities. Australia is quite a regulated country. It has a lot of systems, processes, competitive tendering. Um, Generally speaking, it delivers projects safely, or certainly tries to. And I think that the quality of construction projects in Australia is pretty high, certainly up there in the on a global scale.
Mm.
Saudi Arabia, different geographical location, I guess, different government, different law, and certainly different ways of working in Saudi
And
Arabia. So
different
I
work
think
ethics and
that's right. Yeah. So
yeah.
you certainly, when you are an international engineer or when you do work abroad, you need to observe the local laws. You need to observe the ways of working in those countries.
Mhm.
But certainly maintaining and trying to deliver projects to the same standard that you have before is
Yeah.
certainly a goal that I tried to maintain. But Saudi Arabia, the project I was involved in, it was a CTW 300, and as you mentioned,
Yes.
Altan, it was a package. There was a few other CTW 100, 200, but the 300 component was around an 850 kilometre railway line, predominantly to service a mine in the far north of Saudi Arabia on the
Ah,
border
okay.
with Iraq,
Yeah.
but also a passenger line. So the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia government, they set an ambitious agenda to connect the major port cities,
Mhm.
Jeddah,
Okay.
Riyadh, um, with the far north cities and
Mhm.
the eastern cities as well. So they are still progressing that. I think it did slow down a little bit in terms of the delivery of those works, but
Okay.
the main aim was connecting the country, but also providing the opportunities to trade for the resources they do have in the country, which I think was
Mhm.
phosphate. I think that's the main mine in the north of the country.
Ah, okay. Didn't know
Um,
that. Wow, cool. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, the the climate conditions are similar with Victoria. If I compare the both regions, both are really dry and hot during the day and really low temperatures at night.
extremely. I think Saudi certainly. I was in there in the peak of summer, so you saw daytime temperatures go up to 50 plus degrees.
Wow.
So really
Crazy.
quite incredible. The desert region is the Nafud Desert, and if you log into Google Maps and have a look on the Google Earth view, you'll really see the harshness just by the color of the landscape, being a
Yeah.
dark sort of maroon, yellow, and it's certainly the desert. There's not a lot of greenery, not a lot of water,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
certainly not a lot of rainfall. So and as you said, surprisingly, in winter, I think it can go below zero. That's how extreme it
Wow.
can be.
Wow.
So it certainly was a. I think Australia's a hot country, but um, Saudi too had some extreme heat, which
Yeah.
was quite a surprise.
Wow, cool. I mean, it's that's a real challenge. I mean, you have so many challenges on different scales and dimensions. As you said, business environment, different laws, different work ethics, the temperatures. I mean, the people have to work like in the desert. Yeah, cool. Um, if you compare this project with the gas processing facility from Australia Pacific, are there some similarities? Because I read that the gas which is extracted from the bottom of the sea, from the ocean, has to be cooled down to minus 160 degrees Celsius too. I mean, here again we have temperatures, really extreme temperatures.
Yeah, in terms of similarities, they are construction projects and they involve teams of people with
Yeah.
a common goal of delivering a project on time, on budget, and to satisfy the client in terms of what they are investing in and what they're paying for. I guess they're the key similarities. In terms of the LNG project, Australia does have a lot of natural gas, which is underground, inland,
Hmm.
and as you mentioned, they do cool it at the ports for transportation purposes. So they do take it to a liquid state once it reaches a certain temperature below zero, which I don't know the specific details, but it's certainly pretty cold
It's
um,
pretty cold. Yeah, yeah,
to keep it in a liquid state.
yeah.
So it's almost like a big refrigerator on the water, those big barges that are
Yeah,
transporting the liquefied natural gas.
yeah. And that's why it's engineering. It's so great and something very special. So you have to be capable of like the technical part of the project, the like the paper stuff, all the contracts, the laws, the costs, the time, and other challenges that may come up and pop up like yeah, so it's a really yeah, it's like it's crazy project. Engineering is something really crazy, so not everybody is capable of keep it cool and finalize the project.
Yeah, that's it. It's certainly pretty challenging.
Yeah,
It's quite something when you get to the end of the project, and um, it's great being part of a team
yeah.
delivering that project.
How did you end up with the project in Saudi Arabia? Is it like your boss came, "Hey, Daniel, you're the guy.
Yeah,
Let's
that's it.
gather around people and
Yeah.
members."
It was actually part of a graduate program. So the company I
Okay.
was working for, they offered a number of graduates to do a rotation in Saudi
Hmm.
Arabia. So part of their graduate development scheme was to expose you to different projects, different teams, different sectors,
Okay.
and being a multinational construction company, they encourage graduates to work abroad.
Wow.
So
Cool.
it was certainly it was something I was interested in. I put my hand up. I applied for it, and fortunately, I was successful in being accepted to undertake that rotation in Saudi Arabia. So I certainly learnt a lot in
Yeah.
that short period of time.
How was the application process? I mean, you said it was for graduates, and you had to fill a form, and they pick out the people.
Yeah, you were required to nominate yourself, and for the reasons you do want to go work in Saudi Arabia, and they look at the applications, and fortunately, I was successful.
Cool.
I must have put a good nomination forward, so I was pretty thrilled to receive
Yeah.
that experience.
Yeah. Cool. Um, is there was it like from the university or from the company side of like a kind of marketing strategy? Hey, we need younger people, and let's try to find out who can be suitable for that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think when students who are applying for roles in new companies, um, they like the idea. I certainly did. At the time as I was a student, is to work abroad, work in different environments, to travel, to see different things, and to do that as part of your job is pretty exciting. So I think it does work both ways.
Hmm.
for marketing, but also retaining good talent within the firm,
Yeah.
giving them the opportunities to succeed and grow with the company and understand the dynamics and how they work across different continents and different headquarters in different countries.
Well, pretty impressive. Do you still have like international projects coming up, or you're now focusing on Brisbane?
More, more national based. The company I am working for at the moment, we do a lot of national work,
Hmm.
not so much international.
Yeah. I mean, it's more challenging. It's like more expensive, and the pandemic didn't really help. So the pandemic was a really deal breaker.
It's
Yeah.
certainly pandemic slowed a few things down. I'm sure
Mm,
countries trying to use resources internationally, and it certainly came to a grinding halt during the
yeah.
pandemic. But things are looking pretty bright now. Australia certainly opened up, and people are busy holiday making, so to speak. They're ready to get on a
Yeah.
flight to go to holiday abroad,
Yeah.
or in some cases to return to an international working role.
Mm. On the last episode, I don't know if you listened to the podcast. There was another friend from Australia, Sam, and he told me that was a really crazy time during the pandemic. Like the states in Australia were really like own countries, with the laws and with the strict laws. Like if you want to go from Queensland to New South Wales, they really didn't joke about it.
It was pretty strict. I think on a global standard, I think we made the headlines in New York and London as one of the more stricter countries in terms of how um, states controlled movement of their people in and
Yeah.
out of the states during the pandemic. So it was certainly a tough time, and I think now we're through it. It's hard to believe how extreme it actually was.
Mm.
Certainly was to be in your own country and not be able to move around freely.
Yeah. That's
I think
crazy. Yeah.
it's a pretty foreign idea for a lot of people overseas. So Australia certainly took it pretty seriously. I don't know if that was the completely right approach, but I think during a pandemic, you just don't know.
Yeah. You
I
don't
think
know the
some
outcome. I mean,
yeah, I think some governments are more receptive to opening up faster, and with that, there's implications. So I think it was a matter of striking the right balance. Did Australia achieve that? Maybe not. Maybe some could argue that it was too far.
yeah.
But I
And people went crazy, right? I mean, not only in Germany, I think in Australia too. I mean, here people went crazy and bought like million of toilet papers. I don't know
yeah
why. It
yeah
was crazy.
yep yep. I think we also went through that. I think Woolworths and Coles, which is our two major supermarkets in Australia.
Yeah,
I'm sure you went to them, Alton, when
yeah.
you were
Goals
studying
with
in Brisbane.
the target, like with the targets from like how do you
Logo.
call it, from the game target? Like if you
That,
throw darts or
that's it.
yeah,
Yeah. So the logo of
the logo.
Coles was the shape of a circle. It was red, and it's
Yeah,
the dartboard target.
yeah,
So Coles and Woolworths are the main supermarkets or supermarket chains in Australia. Um,
yeah,
they certainly lost a lot of produce and toilet paper in the panic buying that Australians went through month after month, depending on the criticality of the lockdowns and the severity of working from home. And I still think now, I think there's still a shortage of toilet paper in some supermarkets. I think there's
really.
just, I think the supply chain
Yeah,
globally, although toilet paper is certainly not something that we import here in Australia. It's all
yeah,
locally made
yeah,
because it's relatively inexpensive and it does take up a large volume. So it's not really feasible to be shipping toilet paper. But I think there's a backlog in general with supply chain. They certainly have
yeah,
experienced a huge delays, and I really wonder when the world will catch up. And when you're given a delivery date, you know you're going to receive it on that day. So
Crazy times, but I'm happy that Australia is back on track and people getting normal, I say.
yeah,
And don't do that all this stuff like buying tons of stuff they actually don't need that amount, just buy it like casual weekend, you know.
that's right. Yeah, it's certainly pretty extreme during those
Yeah,
times, but Australia's getting into a new norm now, and
yeah.
I think the masks are still required on a flight.
um
Um,
in public transportation, yes.
in
But
in
like
Germany,
in
in
Germany,
Germany,
yeah.
okay,
But on the street or in like supermarkets, some people wear masks, some people don't.
yeah,
It's way easier, and people don't look at you
yeah, yeah,
like, oh my god, he or she doesn't wear a mask, he tries to kill us. I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Australia's pretty. I think they've relaxed a lot of the restrictions. You are still required to wear a mask on flights,
Mm.
but public transport now, certainly in Queensland, masks are no longer required.
Oh, okay.
And I think I did hear on the news there is talk of removing the requirement of wearing a mask
Mm.
on the plane and in the terminals of airports. So I think that will eventually happen. As to international flights and international laws, I think every country is treating it slightly differently.
Yeah, and just imagine flying from Brisbane to Germany, like with the stopover calculated, like 20 24 hours, wearing a mask. That is not healthy. That's not
No,
healthy. I mean, yeah,
pretty uncomfortable too for that period
yeah,
of time.
definitely. It's it gets wet, because of the breathing,
Yeah.
and yeah, yikes. Yeah. And did the pandemic affected you, like, working wise? I mean, I think you
Yeah,
did lots of home office.
yeah, and it still is a case in Australia. I think a lot of employees do enjoy working from home
Yeah.
um, and not having to be in the office from Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's certainly times where they close the office for a period of time.
Yeah.
But now there's rostered work arrangements, so you may only have to attend work for 3 days a week
Hmm.
instead of the five, and work from home for the rest. But there's certainly different varieties of working arrangements with different employees or different
Yeah.
employers, I should say.
And how was Trisha like? I mean, I forgot her profession or job. What does she do for a living?
Trisha's in the aviation
Aviation. Okay.
field, so she's also an engineer, chemical engineer
Ah, cool.
background, so in the engineering field. But yeah, she's in the aviation analytics um, side of aviation. So certainly she saw a huge downturn in the flights into Australia.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think a lot of airports across Australia had to react to it and deal with the situation as best as possible. But it's certainly pretty positive now. Things are improving, the number of flights are increasing. And now in Australia, I think it's the school holidays. So all airports across Australia are once again inundated with passengers trying to move about, either go on a school
Yeah.
holiday, families going on school holidays with their kids abroad or nationally. But certainly the airports are a hive of activity
Yeah.
once again. So from standstill
Yeah.
to as busy as you can get. So
Yeah. I mean, the problem in Australia is the remote places. It's a really big country. I mean, it's a continent, Like it's about 5 hours flight from Perth to Brisbane, right? Like 5 6 hours flight. I mean, it's really huge, and the cities are really far, far away. I think the next city from Perth is I don't even know.
It's a big country. It
Yeah,
certainly is. From east to west,
yeah,
it can be a 4 or 5 hour flight. Similar to America, if you're flying from New York to
yeah.
LA, I think it's around 3.5, 4 hours. But I think a lot of people um, don't realise how vast Australia is, and I think a lot of Australians are used to driving. Um,
Mm-hmm.
100 kilometres on the road is no big deal.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
where I think in some countries it's 100 kilometres is a big trip. It's a big journey. Um, so I think a
It's
lot
a
of
warm up in
Australians.
Germany.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, warming up exactly.
um, yeah, definitely. Ah, cool. Did the pandemic give you guys a lot of time at home? Like, did you start anything new? Maybe new hobbies? Maybe like for me, I was unemployed. Did have lots of time. I did some research about podcasting because I didn't want to lose the connection with the people.
Yeah.
It's a way to connect with people. And like, did you have any hobbies or still on new hobbies?
So certainly, I try to keep fit and healthy. I think that was always one thing to do. Even now, actually, even
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and post-pandemic, or keeping fit and active, healthy, be it surfing, cycling,
Oh, wow,
walking,
cool.
um, mountain climbing. So certainly being outdoors and seeing different things and being away from the computer screen was always a welcome break. I think I think that's one thing.
bending Bending the elements of Mother Nature.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. I think
Cool.
I think the pandemic certainly brought on excessive time in front of a computer screen,
Yeah.
and getting away from the computer screen became even more became paramount to
Yeah.
keeping you in a good state of mind and seeing things and breathing fresh air, fresh mountain air. It's
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
keeps you alive.
So what is the highest point of in Australia? Or are there any mountains, or is it like
Yeah,
indoor mount there are like indoor um sport activities here in
yeah.
Germany, but I think in Australia you don't really need those.
We don't have big, well, I guess high mountain ranges.
Mhm.
When you do compare it to the French Alps, Italian Alps, or
Yeah.
the Swiss Alps, you certainly Australia has a few mountains. We do have a Great Dividing Range, which is a mountain range which spans right down the east coast of Australia. But they're not high. They don't certainly not snow capped.
Mhm.
The highest peak in Australia is Mount Kosciuszko, and I don't actually remember the height off the top of my mind, but it's certainly a baby mountain compared to Everest or Mount Kilimanjaro or one
Yeah.
of those other big peaks of the world. It's
Yeah.
a very small one.
Would you go to like? Would you like to climb mountains somewhere else in the? Are you that type of guy, like climbing mountains? Is it
Not
like something
not,
you have fun?
not completely. I certainly would be keen to climb Mount Fuji. I think that's a mountain in
In
Japan
Japan,
that
it's
a lot of
Japan,
people
yeah.
do climb. I think now that borders are open, um, I certainly would like to do some more environmental sort of based activities
Yeah.
out in the environment, be it in the ocean, surfing in different countries, or walking.
Mount Fuji, yeah. Japan is one of my like bucket list countries I would like to visit. Yeah, because of like people seem to be nice and the culture is really interesting. And I'm an anime fan. I don't know if you're still watching like cartoons from Japan, like Dragon Ball, all that stuff. I'm
Oh yeah,
really
yeah.
like
I remember
fan
seeing some of
from
those growing up.
yeah, growing
Yeah,
up. It was really fun to watch. And
yeah.
yeah, Japan is one of my bucket list countries. Yeah.
I have to keep it on there, Artem. You have to now the borders are open, there's more
Yeah,
of an
but I
opportunity
just
to visit.
started working, man.
Yeah,
I cannot take like 2 weeks off. Just like, I mean,
I'll
it's
keep,
like 3 weeks ago I started working, and yeah, maybe next year.
yeah,
Yeah,
keep saving that leave. Get that
yeah,
leave balance up.
yeah, cool. Um, are there any vacation plans, like visiting any places far, far away from Australia?
Not at this stage. Still, I guess, even though a lot of Australians are taking up an opportunity to travel abroad, um,
Mm-hmm.
international travel is certainly not at the level it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
So, no trips on the horizon just yet. Um,
yeah,
but certainly looking forward to planning for some trips, be it to Europe or Asia, but no specific destinations just yet.
yeah,
And I think it's a bit of a work in progress, so to speak.
yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah. And you said like you going outside and like climbing mountains, being like within the nature. Lots of people do that because they try to find peace, but you kind of have peace already. So you seem to, as we were talking about the projects on all the subjects, you have a very smooth storytelling and peaceful voice. I think this podcast will be really, yeah, really cool for people who have problems with sleeping or with finding peace. You really have a nice speaking voice. Have you ever thought about doing, I don't know, voiceovers?
No, I haven't actually. I
Yeah,
could be engineer slash voiceover.
yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, I'm doing podcasts, yeah, so yeah, yeah, cool, cool. Yes, Daniel. Is there anything you would like to tell people, or anything you would like recommend people? Any valuable things you would share with our listeners from Germany or any other places?
I think keep going. Be persistent, be consistent, and relish any opportunity that does come your way. Um, Certainly keep going
Keep
and
going.
keep your passions alive.
Yeah,
You might have a small hobby, and all it takes is half an hour on a Saturday morning to just start that hobby, or they in some
yeah,
cases it's making a start. Um, you might have a list of things to do, or something, or some goals to achieve.
yeah,
Start chipping away. Start working at some of them. Could certainly gives you enthusiasm to um, try another hobby as well. So
yeah.
keep growing, keep learning, be persistent, and be consistent.
Wow, that's really it's a valuable thing. Yeah, we should consider that more often. Yes, Daniel. Thank you very, very much. It's always delightful to talking to you. I
Not a
mean,
problem.
now it's like 9 p.m. and I think you like, when do you go sleep actually?
Yeah, usually between 9 and 10. I think on a
Okay.
Sunday night before Monday, usually it
Yeah.
is between 9 and 10, and then into the working week. But no, it's been great. Thank you for
Yeah.
involving me in your
Of
podcast.
course.
It's
Of course.
certainly great.
Yeah.
Great that you started the podcast. It's
Yeah.
certainly
It took like
it's,
1 year of research and a lot of stuff like pop up in my life, and you get distracted, you lose focus, and yeah, and all the application process for a new job. I mean, yeah, it took a while, but
yeah,
finally, thank God,
yeah.
that will be
Congrats,
the thank you, that will be
congrats
the
on the new job. That's great. Yeah, really
thank you.
good news.
And our podcast will be the 7th episode. I think I will upload it in 2 weeks. In several hours, I'm going to record another podcast with another friend, and that will be the 6th one. Yeah. So
That's good to hear. Look forward to
Yeah,
listening to the other podcasts as well. But
yeah.
thanks again, Arten, for
No worries.
having
Do
me.
you would you like to would you like to do the outro? Like the
Yeah,
same intro, like the
definitely.
outro?
Um, Thanks, everyone. That's been me, Daniel, from the land down under in Australia. Um, it's been great talking with you, Arten, and it's been great learning some more about what people are getting up to in Germany and how things are coming out of the pandemic. So certainly thanks again, Arten, and look forward to chatting to you soon.
Yo, thank you very much.
Thanks, Arten.
Hey there, it's me, your podcast host from HUMANIMAL Heroes, local heroes on the globe. If you don't want to miss any episode, then hit that follow button on Spotify, Google Podcast, Anchor.fm, and Amazon Music. Any interesting and inspiring story you'd like to tell people all over the world? No problem, friend. Just let me know on my Instagram or TikTok account, creative_humanimal, and be my guest. Until then, take care and see you soon. Peace out.